Hello and welcome back to St Andrew's Women's Hour. We have our guests in the studio and we have photographer Kit Martin here to talk to us about her new exhibition. Welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Alice and Catherine who have been involved in curating this exhibition. So would you all like to introduce yourselves to us?
Yeah.
You first.
Okay. I'm Kit Martin and I'm a photographer. I've got a background in photography and biology, having studied both at university. And yeah, I'm the photographer involved in the exhibition.
Great.
My name's Catherine Cassidy. I'm a postgraduate museum and gallery studies student and part of one of 8 women that curated Skyward that is in Gateway Galleries right now, and I was part of the marketing team, but mostly responsible for the technical interactive that we had involved there. We have 360 photospheres and drone that can be viewed from the monitor there as well as from a Samsung Gear VR, which is really, really neat. And one of the first times that
Fantastic.
we've done anything like that, or that the postgrad group has done something like that, so that was mostly me.
Cool.
My name is Alice Sartori. I come from Italy, and as Catherine said, we are part of the Skyward exhibition. It's called Skyward, a study in flight. I'm a postgraduate student, and while working for this exhibition, I focused on the education activities mainly. And welcome. I mean, I'm very, very pleased to be here. And so.
She's taken over your radio.
Yeah. No.
Please, no.
Sorry.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about the exhibition, Kit?
Yeah. It's a photography exhibition that includes primarily cyanotype prints, but also some digital images that we've displayed on light boxes and some digital images on fabric as well. Now, alongside these, there's our specimens from the wonderful Bell Pettigrew Museum, where all the subjects of the photographs are also from. So there are specimens from the museum, and there is a display about the cyanotype process of photography as well. And there's a zoetrope to play with, which was made by Henry Rue, a technician at the university. Do you want to know
Yes.
more about a zoetrope?
Yes, yeah. Explain to us what that is.
So it's this sort of one of 2 interactives in the exhibition. I'll mention the other one after. It is a kind of, it's a drum that's about 30, 40 centimetres across. It's got little slits running vertically around it. And what you do is you get yourself down to the level of the drum, spin it, and look through a slit. And inside there are lots of little images. There's about 24 images of a bird in flight, and these spin round, and they're still images, but they look animated when you spin
That's
it.
amazing.
Was it in a different exhibition?
No, it was made specially for
made
this one.
specially.
But
Yeah.
it's historic. It's really the first
one of
use
the
of
first,
before video, before any kind of film.
Okay.
That's how they were able to conclude. The big one was Muybridge was the one that really created it, but it was basically on a bet where it was on a racetrack in California where they were debating whether when horses gallop, do they pick all 4 feet up?
Oh, I
Because when they move,
see.
you can't tell, but when he decided to do all these images,
Yeah.
you put them together and you spin it, you can actually see it and it slows down, and so it's an historic. You've probably seen there's the horse and rider, there's the birds, there's people running, but we included it because of the movement. You can see
Yeah.
slow down the movement of the bird.
This seems to be sort of a theme in the exhibition, that you're kind of combining old and new,
yeah.
Which is really cool. Could you want to tell us a bit about your other sort of animated thing of the exhibition?
Well, the other interactive part,
Yes.
I'll hand over to Catherine
Well,
actually for that.
To kind of clarify too with about like the themes of the exhibition and why we're talking about flight and why we're talking, with the specimens from Bell Pettigrew was our.
Oh, also, can I just,
Yeah.
for everyone who doesn't know, Bell Pettigrew is the sort of museum in St Mary's Quad.
Natural History Museum.
Natural History Museum,
Yeah.
which is full of like taxidermy.
It's a Victorian. It's one of the best preserved Victorian natural history museums in the country. It's the collection was started by the Philosophical Society, and then it was purchased and taken over by the university, and they moved it. It used to be on the Upper College Hall, I forget, and then they moved it over and they built basically the Butte building and part of the Bell Pettigrew Fort. It used to be 2 stories, used to be gorgeous, and so the collection itself is historically important, and a lot of people, there's a lot of lectures taught over there, and a lot of just as like a study space, but a lot of researchers come in because there's extinct animals in there in our collections and stores, but to talk about
it's
okay, to make it all relevant, that we were given a brief, and they had spoken to Kit before we even were part of it, before we even came to the program, but that they would like an artist to focus on the specimens from Bell Pettigrew Museum and kind of use their art, whatever medium it was, and hers happened to be photography and cyanotypes, but to bring them to life, but then focusing on winged and flying species, because James Bell Pettigrew, who it's named after, he was here and he studied animal locomotion, and that was his life's work. So if anything winged, he studied, and he studied here. He lived in Swallowgate. So it was really like, let's tell this thematic story of tying it all together, of that science and the flight and the art and history of St. Andrews, and that's why we have like interactives of the zoetrope being historic, easy to play with, really cool, doesn't lose its like kind of interesting. And then we included, we reached out and collaborated with the university's computer science department to get them involved and to do an interactive that's almost the progress of flight, where we don't even have to be flying anymore to experience what flight's like. So we took the drone and flew all over, and you can have it, wash it in the gear, and actually, almost you have to sit down sometimes because it's just so intense, and you think you're flying, and you look all around. So it's just like, it's that progression and how science and art are connected.
Yeah.
And if I can butt in as well, that part of it was inspired as well by Professor Bell Pettigrew, who himself built a flying machine, because he wasn't only fascinated by animal flight, he wanted to fly himself. So he built a flying machine in a bit.
Would you tell us more about Bell Pettigrew?
He was a medical doctor, but he, let's see, I think he was graduating in Edinburgh. I mean, you know a lot as well, too, but he
studied in different places. He was down in London for a while, because he actually studied animals in London Zoo for about 5 years, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he was a member of the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh. So he worked in Edinburgh a while. He was also a member of the Royal College of Physicians in Edinburgh too, which nowadays I think you're one or the other. But anyway, in those days he was both. So he was an anatomist,
surgeon,
heart surgeon,
cardiology, and but he came up here to be the Chanos chair of anatomy or bio?
Medicine and anatomy.
Medicine and anatomy. And he actually built Swallowgate, so that whole building, that was one of the largest buildings at that time to be built. And this was mid-1800s, we're saying.
1875?
Yeah, 1875. Because then he passed away early 1900,
9, 8.
You know everything. Well, so bad with dates. But yeah, and he had other publications, but his life's work was actually, it sounds a little like too good to be true, but it was published on the day he died. But he did it all here, and that was the incredible thing, that all of this was done in St. Andrews. He did all of his research and his studies here. He collected organisms here, and so some of the things that are in Bell Pettigrew are from here. He did a lot with swallows, birds, flies, bugs.
Sycamore seeds.
Some of the bugs had their wings kind of ripped off.
Wow.
Different things. Wow. And he's buried here as well. And his wife was very instrumental in getting his name on that that building and getting the museum all together.
And also his flying machine came out before the Wright brothers.
Yes.
That's what's interesting.
Technically an ornithopter. It was, since he was so basing it on biology, where he was going with the flapping movement, which obviously did not work. Because, and you see with what worked was the fixed wings with the Wright brothers. But, the supposed story, because it was very strategically taken out of the papers by his wife because
Okay.
it didn't want to ruin his reputation. But it was that about 60 feet he got up in the air on Abbey Walk and then promptly crashed it and broke his nose.
Yeah.
So, and he was older at this time, so I think
He was about 70, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
She didn't want it to be the talk of the town.
Yeah.
So
So, Kirsty, how have you found working with the university in this collaboration?
I found it wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So I've been kind of hanging around the Bell Pettigrew Museum for a while now. I was really inspired by it when I moved to St Andrews area a few years ago. Came in, had a look, thought, oh, this is wonderful. Quite like to take some photographs in here. And I eventually managed to speak to Carl Smith, the curator of the museum, who was just so helpful in giving me access to the museum and then behind the scenes as well.
Wow.
So in my spare time I'd come in and take photographs for my use and also some for the university, you know, for websites and things. So when this kind of invitation, you know, came from Musa and from Carl, I jumped at the chance.
Yeah.
It was great. And I have really loved working with these 8 students and the staff in the Musa and the art history
Yeah.
department. Yeah, I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. I've learnt a lot, and it's just given me a great opportunity to show some of the work that you know
Yeah.
I was just working away
Yeah.
at. So yeah, absolutely
And
loved
how
it.
long's the exhibition on for?
It's on until the 15th of May.
Right.
great.
Okay.
went up 11th of March, and so
Okay.
it's about a month now. So yeah, it's only
Great.
1 more month.
And
Yeah,
on
right.
the 14th of May,
15th on the last day. We
on the last day,
Sunday.
sorry, yes, there's
We're part of Festival Museums, and so we'll have all-day events. It's a like kind of Scottish-wide
Cool.
weekend for all museums to kind of reinvigorate their own community. And
Yeah.
trying to get them to come and visit again with new different events and things specifically for that weekend. For us, it's all free.
Fantastic.
Kids going to be leading some cyanotype workshops, so you can come and
Great.
create your own.
That's
Yeah, I'd love
fantastic.
And
to.
we'll be flying the drone outside and hopefully getting some live feed
Oh,
to
cool,
inside,
yeah.
so you can kind of like, you know, if you've never, because some people have never seen it, and then
Yeah.
and then also with the gear, and we're gonna have some like cardboard ones that you can use
Okay.
your own phone and
Cool.
like, you know, experiment
Yeah.
with some apps and stuff. So just like an overall fun day.
Cool.
So,
And Alicia, do you want to tell us a bit about what your masters, like the museum curation masters, how that's been involved in the process?
Sure. So, while studying here for this Master in Museum and Gallery Studies, we have been doing so many things.
So many.
Classes, individual internships, seminars, projects, and so on. But the main part of this learning process was actually curating an exhibition. So our class was divided into 2 groups. And we are working for one of these, which is the Skyward exhibition. And we divided into 4 main teams. So we have the marketing team, the education one, printing materials and publication, and then we have the display, of course. So we had different duties, but at the same time we had to collaborate all together and agree about all the decisions.
Since the beginning.
Since the
Right
beginning.
away. Before we even knew each other, they were like, okay, go ahead, pick your group. It's kind of buying, because you want to learn, and that's it's actually all really prevalent, because we've just had to, one of our last assignments we just turned in was like a review of the whole year. And it's like, what have you learned? But it's, you know, it's like, okay, you want to learn new things, because for me, I have a science background and I want to work in museums, obviously, doing this, but this is my first time really doing a lot of things with museums. So I have other backgrounds. I'm like graphic design and different things like that. So I want to help in marketing and sponsorship. But you want to think, okay, what's best for the whole group? You end up doing everything. You know, it's just because you're in this one group doesn't mean that you're never going to do display. You're never going to do publications or anything. That it's just kind of like you're the head person and then everybody else is involved. So it's a very the program wants you to learn by doing, because that is, I mean, you can be talked at a lecture so much, but you're not going to learn it until you're actually doing it, and you have to I mean, this is public. This is a real exhibition. It's not like, oh, we're going to do we're working with Kit, with a real artist. You know, it's not just...
It's not fictional. I mean, it was a real project on a real exhibition.
Yeah, and
so
getting real reviews and real write-ups and fantastic. I mean, we've had great response from it. So, yeah, it's fun to see it all come to a head, like, you know, with it actually open.
And Kit, could you tell us about how you got into photography and and
Okay.
the background?
Okay. Well, I certainly got a few photos. I was just looking through them the other day with my daughter, actually, because she has to take some photos of when she's a baby into school. So we were looking at lots of old photos, including ones from when I was a child. I took photos really, you know, from quite a young age. But it was at secondary school that I started getting into photography a bit more, because we were lucky enough to have a darkroom. And a group of us, used the darkroom quite often. And one of the things we do each year was on Charities Day, we would take requests from somebody to take a photograph of somebody they fancied, and then give it to them. So that was, I suppose, my first photography job. And then I went on to study, as I mentioned at the start briefly, I studied biology and photography together, a course called biological imaging. So all about the communication of biology. So linking art and science. We did photography, graphic design, and a small amount of film. And I've just kind of developed from there. I then went into medical photography after studying. It was about 5 years as a medical photographer, which is not at all creative, but really interesting.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. Everything has to be very standardised, lighting and, you know, angles and everything. But I got to see a huge variety of things and meet a huge number of people. So I did really enjoy that. But I then moved on. I gave myself a bit of a challenge because I'd been there 5 years and I thought, right, I want to do something else. Joined the police as a forensic photographer. But as it turned out, it wasn't quite for me. I was only with the police in Edinburgh for a year, just over a year. And I just realised I couldn't quite handle being on call for a potentially, you know, horrific incident that had happened, because the department I was in, there's the scene of crime officers who go out every day to everyday situations, you know, be it a burglary or a altercation or something, an assault. And then there's the photography department, which I was in, and that's, you're only called out for a major incident. So, you know, my colleagues had been at Lockerbie and all these, you know, horrific things.
Wow.
So a lot of our time actually was spent in the department processing films and things. And actually, and I took this as a bit of bad karma, but I got burgled. My flat got burgled when I was working for the police. The guy was caught. I then scanned him in. It was all quite bizarre. And I got a complete slagging from my colleagues for my CD collection that he had nicked. Because when it was recovered. And also, he stole my camera. He stole my camera, and is this okay to talk about?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Is it all resolved? Is it all solved?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So resolved.
Well, I don't know.
But it's public record.
And the photographs came back, and they became evidence. So it was all embroiled. Me, a photographer, my work. So, moving on from there, I see myself as a much more creative photographer nowadays. Those jobs were very, very interesting, not particularly creative. And now I've, in between times, I've done actually quite different work. I got into I studied environmental management in between times, and I've been working with various environmental groups over the years. It's another real passion of mine. But now I'm back doing photography much more, and I'm really, really pleased.
Yeah, great.
But even still, with your photography, it's all, you know, to the natural world and organism. You know, it's
Yes, yeah, that's
mostly
definitely
pulling from nature anyway. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
it's all connected.
Yep.
Could you tell us a bit about how you found being a woman in
She's multiple women.
a woman in those situations, and whether there was any difference or whether you notice it at all or anything like that.
Do you mean in the work situations that?
Yes,
I've
in
been
the
in?
work situations, and also as being a female artist.
Yeah. Well, I think I've probably never felt so female as when I was a police photographer.
Okay.
Yeah, in other jobs, I don't think that's even, really crossed my mind. But yeah, I felt very female, particularly at first. And it was partly because it was a department of men. Actually, another woman came in during the time I was there and has now gone on to work in the Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. Anyway.
Oh, lovely.
But I felt very kind of female there. There was a lot of kind of, jokes being stopped halfway through when I came in the room and things for a while until they sussed out that I actually wasn't easily offended.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think what I suppose I can maybe talk about with a bit more kind of relevance to me is being a mother, because I've got children. So now that I'm focusing on being a photographer, kind of full time, I have to kind of find space to develop creatively, and I think sometimes it's been difficult over the years, being a mother and a creative kind of person, artist, if you like. But it's not something. It's something I've chosen to do because when my children were very, very young, I decided that I would be their primary carer. I'd look after them. I wasn't really wanting to pay other people to do an awful lot of that. So I made that decision. Very happy about it. Now they're getting older. It's a time to work out. They're off to secondary school soon, actually, so I can work out a bit more time for me to be able to develop creatively. And actually, on that note, there's a wonderful exhibition that's actually only on until Friday this week in Hannah McClure Centre in Dundee. I don't know if anybody's been, but it's called... sorry, it's just completely gone out of my head. It's called Motherload.
Motherload, okay.
It's called Motherload, and the artists that are involved are all mothers, and it's all around this issue of motherhood and creativity.
Wow,
It's really worth a
that's
visit.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
So where was that again? Sorry.
It's in Hannah McClure Centre on the top of the Student Union of Abertay University.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic.
Great.
Really good.
Oh. Okay.
And just broadening out from that, what do you think about, well, this is open to anybody really, just women in the arts in general? Do you feel that they have enough sort of space for them, or has there been any difficulties or not at all, and what's the way forward and that kind of thing?
The future.
If I can say something about this, I really think that the gender imbalance in the art world nowadays is still quite strong, and there are a lot of protests and activists that actually really want to talk about this, because the problem is that sometimes people don't talk about the fact that still, like, female artists are not well represented, or they're not as represented as male artists, or women in the art world don't earn so much as a, let's say, as the male counterpart, for example.
There's still wage gap.
A lot. Just to give you some details, for example, a very important date in this debate was 1971, when the art historian Linda Nochlin wrote her seminal essay named "Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists?", where basically she demonstrates that this gender imbalance in art making was actually caused by a gender imbalance within the society. So it's a sort of mirror of what is happening in the society nowadays. More or less 10 years after, so let's say at the end of the 80s, a group of anonymous women collaborated together, and they started at a collective, an artistic collective called the Guerrilla Girls. They're super famous, and they dress up with it's a gorilla mask and they protest, and then they want to raise her voices in order to make people understand that these issues are still a problem. For example, they are very famous for a poster they did in 1998. It was for the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Basically, in the poster is bright yellow, and there is the Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres Odaliscan slave. It's basically a reclined nude, female nude, with the gorilla mask. And this in this poster is written, "Do women have to be naked to get inside the Met Museums?" And this was specifically because in the modern section of the Metropolitan, just 5% of artists were female, but actually 85% of the nudes were women nudes. So they are very sensible about this kind of issues, and they protest very loudly, but also very ironically.
Wow.
In the last 30 years, for example, there is undeniable rise of female artists, curators, directors in the art world. And actually the art world has shaped a sort of mainstream discourse that inequality no longer exists. But is it actually true? Because statistics really speak differently. For example, to give you an idea, in 2012, the East London Fawcett Group, that is a part of the Fawcett Society, is the leading campaign for gender equality. Reported not a single female artist was present in the top 100 auction sales, and it was just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And nothing has really changed in the last 3 years. So it's clearly an issue, even though a lot of things are changing. For example, in the last
and probably art would be one of the first places though that it would be a little bit less. I think sometimes because from a science background, you see it obviously the STEM issue and like pushing for girls in science.
Wow, this is something that we could talk a patch more on. Like,
sorry, we have to.
Yeah,
we have to sum up now because we'll.
But there is a lot to say about this. Absolutely, there is
and why it is. And why is it still,
Okay. But thanks for coming on the show. It's been fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Delving into this so much more to say of an issue. Yeah.
So the exhibition is where?
It's on in Gateway Galleries.
Yeah.
It's for free. You can go in. There's on weekends too. On Saturday, there's Arty Saturdays there for children. So educational events is free. Between 12 and 3, you can do the Samsung gear. We have somebody in there to do that, but it's free to go in, and it's on until May 15th.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And Catherine and Alice, this has been St Andrew's Women's Hour.
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.